Hey everyone, thank you so much for being here. Before we kick off this week's episode, just a quick ask. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell to make sure that you never miss an episode, never miss out on any of the strategies and tactics that we're sharing to help you continue charting your own path to freedom. And if you'd like to go deeper with any of this, we've launched a free Facebook group, which you can join at pathtofreedom.com/group. And we've linked that in the show notes to make it easy for you to find. All right. Thank you again for being here. Let's drop in to the episode. What up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Path to Freedom podcast. Today, I'm joined by a good friend of mine, Mr. Graham Chapman. Graham is not a stranger to this podcast, although it has been a while, probably too long since he's been a guest, but I'd have to look back. But I think probably one of the first 5 guests that I ever had on the podcast. Also instrumental in coordinating and participating in the one and only, out of the studio podcast that we recorded poolside with some other friends that were also franchisees. So that was fun. And maybe we need to figure out a way to do something like that again. But Graham, welcome to the show.
Wes, thanks for having me, man. We've come a long way since COVID pods at the pool with cigars.
That's right. It was COVID, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, man. Really excited to be here. Pumped to talk about 919 and ZorForum. Got my Bob Does Sports Breezy Golf shirt on today. So let's have a day and have some fun.
Let's have a day. I love that. So give everyone kind of a refresher, because you and I met years ago. You've very quickly became one of my best friends in franchising. We were able to kind of officially, work together when I was at Shelf Genie, running franchise development. You mentioned 919 marketing. So that's where we first connected. That's what you've been, primarily working on up until the last year or two. And then you mentioned ZorForum, which is one of the newer ventures that you're a part of. So, give us kind of a refresher on 919 marketing and what you guys do and how it's relevant to the franchise space. But, then I'd like to really probably focus most of today's discussion on ZorForum, because I think it's fascinating. And I think it's really cool what you guys are doing with that.
Yeah, man. Happy to. I've been in franchising for more than 15 years. I've been proud to serve franchisors and franchisees and support the IFA in any way that we can. The body that is out there fighting the good fight for franchising and helping us protect this wonderful business model that we all love and benefit from. I'm really, a big part of the franchising community in 3 ways. One, as Wes mentioned, is as the Chief Growth Officer for 919 Marketing. We are the only truly full service and comprehensive agency of our kind serving the franchising space. And we do 3 things exceptionally well. We do all things high impact PR and storytelling. So anything a brand is trying to do to share the good word about their company, their franchise opportunity, and what they're trying to accomplish as a brand at scale, we're great at. We do all things franchise development, anything that is not tied to wonderful coaches and brokers like Wes going out and trying to attract qualified candidates. We help brands place spends and set themselves apart online in such a way to attract great candidates. And then for your listeners, Wes, for franchisees, we are often brought in by brands as a preferred partner to offer local digital programs to franchisees to help take marketing out of their hands and allow them to focus on growing their business. So really proud of how we've been able to grow and diversify our offering at 919 to serve the needs of both franchisors and franchisees. Second way I'm really known in the franchising space is because, like Wes, I like to drink bourbon. I like to spread the good word and pay it forward to people I care about in the space. And I'm happy to be sort of one of the driving forces behind the still viral campaign called Whiskey Wednesday, which I still see 4 years later, since we did start that during COVID to keep the franchising community connected. I still see someone new post their very first Whiskey Wednesday video on LinkedIn or Facebook, raising a glass, sharing whatever they're drinking, be it water, wine, bourbon, what have you, and sending out some good vibes. I mean, Wes has got his positive vibes only shirt on. That's what Whiskey Wednesday is all about. It's keeping us all connected, sharing praise for people doing great work in the franchising space, and keeping us all connected.
Yeah, and
Speaking,
I will say the Whiskey Wednesday, especially, rewind to early, to mid 2020 in the midst of COVID and lockdowns. And, because the franchise community is very tight knit, and there's, a series of conferences and events that, many people from the franchising world, attend every single year. And it's always good to, reconnect with people and see people face to face. So obviously, none of that was happening. And so, you guys came up with this Whiskey Wednesday, campaign or just, way to keep people in touch, keep it fun. Um, I've backed off of Whiskey Wednesday a little bit though, because we did in fact have two pandemic babies. One born in late 2020, the other born in early 2022. And Whiskey Wednesdays may have played a role in that. So I'm not trying to have a fourth kid. So I have backed off of Whiskey Wednesdays a little bit.
I don't blame you, man. Whiskey Wednesday may be why you have Irish twins.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Because especially, during lockdowns, it was Tequila Tuesday and Whiskey Wednesday, and a lot of times Tequila Thursday again. And now we have three kids instead of one, like we did at the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah, man. Well, yeah, look, I mean, Whiskey Wednesday still continues on. We've done a bunch of live events, brought the people together. We have our royal court, our king, Pete Baldine, the four queens, and Cassidy Ford, Paige Robinson, Amanda House, and Emily George, all luminaries in the franchising space who do everything that they can to shout out the people that they love and respect in the franchising space. We've had a number of offshoots in the Compliment Circle campaign, Franchise Flowers. So really excited to keep Whiskey Wednesday as a fixture in this franchising space to keep everyone connected and keep everyone having fun together and giving praise where it's due. Speaking of bringing people together, ZorForum is another idea that emerged from the pandemic that I'm extremely excited about. I am one of the co-founders of ZorForum, serve our growing franchise community, which is what ZorForum is, a community of mastermind groups that are focused exclusively on serving the needs of franchisors. So there are plenty of groups out there, YPO, EO, Vistage, other mastermind groups that are well known, that have done a great job of helping entrepreneurs figure out how to navigate the challenges of business ownership, but nothing until ZorForum existed that serves the needs of the franchise community specifically, helping franchise CEOs partner with more reputable supplier partners, make smarter decisions on how they grow their brand, work through the challenges they face as they overcome hurdles associated with growing their brand. I'm proud to be surrounded by other co-founders, Dave Pasgan, who Wes and I will talk about here, about his background and story and how it conceived of the idea of ZorForum, our Chief Development Officer, Stan Friedman, Chief Marketing Officer, Eric Mayers, and the great folks at Blue Maven who have come in doing what they do, which is phenomenal fractional executive work, shoring up the things we were struggling with as our COO, CTO, and Chief Growth Officer, Ashley Loza, Kevin Shaw, and John Moreau. And then we have franchisees already, Johnny Franchise, who many of you may know, who is our first franchisee, is growing exceptionally well with his three groups. And we're looking at getting to 15 or 20 franchisees by the end of this year, serving the needs of more than 80 franchisor members in our ZorForum community.
And you're a franchisee yourself with this, as well as being one of the co-founders and a member of the executive team. And so, for those kind of, maybe scratching their head a little bit, say, okay, let me get this straight. There's a franchise to help franchisors, right? It may sound a bit convoluted, especially to someone that's not as well versed in franchising. So I guess the first question is, why did you guys decide to structure this as a franchise itself?
Yeah. We didn't originally.
Right.
And then, shout out to our awesome lawyer, Mike Drum at Drum Law, when he's helping us, review the business model. We're going to either check out, our ops manual and our training and just understanding the business model we were developing to try to take mastermind groups and grow them at scale to serve the needs of franchisors. And the way mastermind groups work well is when you have a group of 6 to 8 committed, dedicated folks who have this tight knit, intimate group that they're a part of on an ongoing basis. When we're thinking about it, it's like we have to have people serving as moderators who are trusted advisors and guides to these 6 to 8 franchisors in this variety of groups. It became readily apparent that the best way to grow that in a sustainable way, and for us as the founders to provide effective guidance and support to our moderators, was to turn it into a franchise model. And clearly that makes sense to us because that's our background too. So it sort of made just too much sense not to do it that way.
Yeah. So it's really the same as why so many other businesses have gone the franchise route. They see the value in shared ownership, right?
That's right.
And local ownership, right? Because to your point, for any sort of a mastermind style group to really be beneficial for the members, someone's got to take ownership of that and, at least set the tone for how the group is going to go. And then ultimately everyone that's a part of it needs to also, take ownership or feel as though they are an instrumental part of the group, and everyone needs to be bought in. But, to get it started on the right foot, you need someone with, ownership and, real incentive to do it the right way and to make sure that it's meaningful and lasting. So that piece of it makes sense. You mentioned some other, potentially similar groups out there that are very well known. Vistage, YPO, EO. Why does a founder or CEO of a franchise company need a group like ZorForum when they're very likely already part of EO or have been in the past? Why is that franchise specific group so valuable? We'll get right back to the episode in just a minute, but if you've been considering business ownership, if you're already a business owner looking to expand and you're curious about franchising, I'd love to connect with you, answer any initial questions that you have, talk about a specific franchise, and detail the exact process that I use and have taken hundreds of people through to help them understand franchise ownership, find the right franchise for them, and conduct the necessary due diligence. Click the link in the show notes if you'd like to schedule a free, no obligation strategy call. I look forward to talking with you. And now back to the episode.
Yeah, they're not mutually exclusive. A lot of our members at ZorForum now are already part of other groups. They may have a personal business coach. They may be part of a YPO or a Vistage, and they get value from each of those resources. But when I talk to all of our members about why they're so excited to be part of the ZorForum community and why they chose to be in a ZorForum group too, is that they were really struggling to get franchise specific guidance from those other groups. Where the other entrepreneurs are dealing with, it might be tied to their industry, whether they're in recruiting or staffing or restaurants or healthcare. Like that's typically where they were assigned to a group in these other areas, and they got good guidance there, but they felt like that was more befitting of their chief operating officer or someone else at their company who's really trying to champion that specific industry as opposed to figuring out how to truly leverage the franchise business model to the benefit of their brand. So they get that value by being around other franchise CEOs who are at a similar stage of growth, dealing with similar challenges and hurdles that they're trying to overcome. There's also the larger community of ZorForum. So yes, you have your own tight-knit group, but we have a Slack channel. We have in-person events where we get people together and sort of champion and celebrate that community of dozens of franchisors who are coming together to share knowledge and best practices in a way that's simply not available in those other really well done mastermind format groups that just aren't in the franchising community.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes a ton of sense to me. I mean, there's nuances with the franchise business model that do not apply to other businesses. Um, and as we've already kind of talked about, and as you've listed off all these different names of companies and individuals that are kind of staples in franchising, like it really is a tight knit community. And one of the things that's always blown my mind in a positive way about franchising is just how willing people are to open up and share and help in any way that they can, whether that's through introductions or recommendations. I mean, it's how you and I met, right? Someone
Right.
referred me and the brand that I was working with to your company because you guys had been in franchising for a long time, had a great reputation. Can't tell you how many people you've introduced me to and connected me to over the years that has been beneficial to me. um and yeah, so to me it makes a lot of sense that whether it's an established franchise brand or a very young emerging brand or somewhere in between, the founders and the leaders of those brands having access to other people that are also building a franchise organization, that's going to carry a lot of value that they may not necessarily be able to get from another group that they're a part of, where they're
That's
still
right.
likely getting great value, but it's just not franchise specific. To me, it's very similar to where a franchisee with a brand is going to get a lot of value from the other franchisees in the brand because they're
That's right.
all fighting the same fight. They're all out there operating the same business. They're not competitors. Um, and they're going through the same challenges. And, if you're a newer franchisee and you've got some more established franchisees, like chances are they've been through the challenges you're going through. They've struggled with the same stuff. And that type of support is really invaluable. So to me, it makes a ton of sense. I wanted to just, kind of make sure the audience was tracking with us in terms of why you structured it as a franchise, and also why this is valuable for a franchisor to be a part of.
Yeah, and let me give two things that are to the benefit of your audience, largely franchisees. Why your brand leaders or franchisors being part of a ZorForum group in the larger ZorForum community is to their benefit. There are many reasons, but two initial ones being the dirty little not so secret in franchising is that 300 new franchisors, franchise brands enter the space each year, and 300 leave because they haven't figured out how to grow quick enough, support their franchisees, build a sustainable model. ZorForum is helping to provide a quicker, more effective roadmap for emerging brands to get to a point of success and get to a point of staying power. So these awesome aspiring business owners, like a lot of the people listening to this podcast, are committing and buying into brands that have a larger likelihood of staying in the franchising space and succeeding. So, us helping these emerging brands make better choices on the supplier partners they bring in to support their franchisees, make better choices on the people they're recruiting to the corporate office to be a good fit for the culture and lead that brand, to set up systems and processes and procedures that are more well thought out and are learning from the mistakes that others have made before them, is helping to set each of these franchisors up so their franchisees have a better chance of sticking with this model long term and not suffering from the fate of a franchisor going down and then thereby taking the franchisees with them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. I mean, there are so many different ways that a brand new franchisor can fail. And look, you're going to have some failures and some speed bumps regardless, right? When you're building any sort of a business, when you're franchising your business, but there are what you could call deadly potholes, many deadly potholes that a young franchisor can fall into. And so having that guidance and support and someone that's maybe a little further along than you, or this collective group, where you get to benefit from all of that experience, that can help a newer franchisor really avoid some potholes that could derail the brand indefinitely. I was talking to Scott Marr. I think you know Scott.
Yeah.
He was on the podcast not too long ago, and he's built several brands at this point, and they've been acquired by private equity, and so we were talking about kind of his newest venture, which is Franchise Altitude, and it's really just his own little private venture capital firm where he's a minority investor, and right now only a handful of brands that are very, very young. We're talking 1, 2 franchisees, maybe even haven't sold their first franchise yet. And that's the thing he's most excited about, with this, is being able to, connect with these founders of brands early, before they've had a chance to make a bunch of mistakes, and, just use his experience over building and selling 3 brands, all the connections that he's made, all the mistakes that he's made, and kind of help them navigate that process. So, this is very similar to that in my mind, but you are benefiting from the experience of numerous people that are part of this group. And then, as you said, the group as a whole of ZorForum, and as that continues to grow in terms of the number of franchisees, or I guess group moderators that ZorForum has, and the number of members that each of them have underneath them, that value is just going to increase exponentially.
That's it, man. Yeah, I mean, there is no blueprint to doing things perfectly at the franchisor or the franchisee level, but at least
No,
hearing from others who have dealt with similar challenges, and that's what our explorations are in our groups, which is really the crux of a mastermind meeting, which is the moderator helps to identify a topic that is sort of sticking at the craw of various members of that group, has one person who has expressed that challenge as if they had one thing to present on that day, this is what they would talk about, and dig deep into what that problem is, why it's holding their system back, what they've thought about doing about it, and the good, bad, and ugly behind it, and then opening it up to the group to ask questions, but then more importantly, just share their experiences. The point is not to give direct advice and guidance and tell that person grappling with that issue what to do, but instead to, in Gestalt fashion is what it's called, to share the experiences and the trials and tribulations that those different franchisors have dealt with on that topic. And a lot of those are dealing directly with supporting and elevating the performance of franchisees. Have you worked with this type of local digital marketing partner? What, how have you struggled with training and onboarding, setting people up for success? We're going through this huge technology migration and this technology adoption. How do we get to the finish line sooner and make sure that technology platform or new idea that we're rolling out to the system is set up to the benefit of our franchisees more quickly? Having that shared experience in the room to help franchisors get those things right more quickly is huge to the benefit of the franchisees, for sure.
yeah, it's massive. And there, I mean, the list could just literally go on and on in terms of the different topics that these franchisors can advise each other on, and help each other with. And you bring up an interesting point, because we have kind of talked primarily about the benefit of like a younger, more emerging franchisor being a part of this group. But you pointed out to me in a previous conversation, like, this is not just for new franchisors. You've got a lot of very established, very mature brands, and very tenured founders or CEOs that are a part of this, and they can get value from it too. And to me, part of it's just that, I mean, the landscape's always changing. You mentioned digital media. You mentioned, like, what technology stack to use. I mean, it's changing and evolving so fast in this day and age. Like, even the most tenured franchise executive out there would probably appreciate some guidance, and just, brainstorming and bouncing ideas off of other franchise executives in terms of like, hey, what are you guys doing? What are you looking at doing? Oh, you tried this, why did it not work for you? I mean, it's I got to think just as, if not more valuable for the experienced
It
franchisor.
is. Yeah. I mean, ZorForum, as you said, is both for emerging and established franchisor leaders. So, yes, my group, the one that I moderate, that you were kind enough to point out, because I do operate as a franchisee of ZorForum myself, those folks have been in franchising for 15, 20 years, or leading systems of over 100, 200 units. And it works well because they're all at similar stages of growth. You never stop changing and growing and evolving to lead a franchise brand. Yes, they have more mature and evolved challenges, but challenges nonetheless that they are helping each other solving. And then the benefit of having these more experienced, longer tenured folks as part of that larger ZorForum community is they can serve as resources for these emerging folks who are looking to shortcut those challenges. The reason they're not a great fit to be in the same small, intimate group together is that, an emerging brand that's 15 or 20 locations, been in franchising for a couple of years, can certainly gain a lot from that emerging franchisor, but there's only so much that they can offer to that emerging leader. Not that on a human level they can't help, but to protect the value that everyone's gaining from the mastermind group. That's why we're so adamant about making sure that each of these groups is comprised of franchise leaders at a similar stage of growth, similar level of experience in the franchising space. Then the last piece is all of these groups are category exclusive. You're not going to see two pizza concepts, two window washing leaders in the same group, because we really need to protect that trust level where people are willing to share super openly about everything.
Yeah.
We get into the books, we get into the growth strategies, we get into some pretty serious stuff. And if we allowed competitors to be part of the same group, they'd be hesitant to share some trade secrets.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I was gonna ask, are you guys, looking at the makeup of the group, and you just kind of addressed that. So, you're trying to, kind of keep one group or a group that's more geared towards emerging franchisors, and then you'll have another separate group where you've got more experienced franchisors. Because totally see your point. You want the experienced franchisors to always feel like they're getting value, and you could be in a scenario where they're giving a lot more than they're getting if they have a bunch of younger franchisors, many of which I'm sure would be fine with that. But, this is a paid program, right? So
That's right.
you got to make sure. And I mean, I'm thinking of like, my wife's on a couple of, we call them power teams with Shelf Genie, but, basically mastermind peer groups. And, one of them is extremely valuable, right? She gets a ton out of it. She contributes a ton to it. The other one, she kind of dreads, those meetings every month because, she's a top performing franchisee, was franchisee of the year for the brand last year. And she just feels like people are constantly just asking her to do, asking her to share, which she's happy to do. But a lot of those people are also wanting her to just hand over, like they're trying to shortcut it, right? And there's nothing wrong with working smart instead of hard, but if you're in this type of a group, number one, you've got to be aware that you've always got to be trying to give and add value as best as you can, even if you're less experienced. The purpose of the group is to learn and to gain value as well. But you got to be willing to do the work. You got to be willing to take the advice, take the guidance, take the strategies, and implement it yourself. The other members of the group are not there to handle the implementation and execution for you. So, anyways, maybe a little bit of a tangent there, but so like as a moderator, what are you doing to make sure that the structure or the culture of the group stays where it needs to be, and if it does start to get off track a little bit, like how do you bring it back? Like what can you share on along, because your group's been going how long now?
2 years. 2 years.
Yeah, and it's pretty much been the same members the entire time.
We have, I'd say, half the group were founding members that have been there from the beginning, and we have added folks as we've gone along. Our current group, which is full at 8 members, the collective has been together for the past 6-7 months, and we're really starting to get to a point where mutual trust exists between everybody, and the depth to which we get on sort of the 3 legs of the stool, business, family, and then, family and friends, and then personal health and considerations has been mind blowing. I mean, our mantra at our group level, and then as a group as a whole, is share your shit. But it does take quite a bit of time of developing connections with people and trust, and to get that vulnerable, to get quite that deep. But to answer your question, the moderator's role is to be an effective guide and a trusted resource to the members of the group. There has to be a level of trust and respect that the members in the group have for the moderator or that leader for it to function well. That leader has to be an open, vulnerable, humble leader themselves for that to work well in this format. It's very structured how we go about this. I mean, it is a commitment. It is 3 hours of uninterrupted time that these franchisor leaders are giving to the other members of the group once a month, which sounds like it could be easy to do, but it's not. You get discovery days that pop up, board meetings, travel, doesn't matter. They carve out the time. They're there for each other. So one big job of the moderator is to hold the group members accountable that they do not miss those meetings. It does not happen. You are there for the full 3 hours. We have to come up with the structure. Go ahead, Wes.
Well, I was just saying, like, I know, like, B&I and some of these groups, are very intentional with that as well. And I think, to the point where, if you miss more than a certain number of meetings, you're out, right?
That's right.
Or if you have to miss, you're responsible for, finding someone to come as a proxy or a guest for you. Or, like, have you had to implement anything like that, or has it not been necessary because you're able to really establish that buy-in up front?
Hasn't been necessary. It will be. I can't tell you that we had that figured out. Whether it's one absence a year is reasonable. Thankfully, that's not been a concern. It will be as we grow, and we'll have
Yeah.
to. That's my original thought, is that yes, you can have, I guess, one get out of jail free card, but you miss 2 consecutive meetings or what have you, and we got to have a serious conversation because you're disrupting the value of the group. Not only are you not benefiting from your investment, you're taking away from the value that the other members can gain on critical topics that we're trying to work through. But the reason it's valuable is this is not, we get together for 3 hours and we're shooting the shit and just hanging out and hoping something happens. There are 2 specific ways we do this. We can either have an expert speaker come in, which is part of the value of this group that, again, is to the benefit of franchisees, where with my Rolodex of contacts, our franchisees who have come in and been moderators, who are luminaries in the franchising space, well connected, been involved in franchising for many, many years. They know the good from the bad as far as people who, on the supplier side, the vendor partner side, who do things the right way, have the right character, have proved performance over the years. And those are the people that they bring in, not to pitch their services to franchisors, but speak as an expert on whatever topic. Tech stack, like we mentioned, digital marketing, lead generation, PR, etc. So some of the meetings are structured where a third of it is dedicated to an expert speaker. My favorite style of meeting is when we do 2 explorations. So the first 45 minutes, quick, succinct, 5-minute updates that are predicated off of what we call a monthly update form. I wouldn't say it's that innovative, but that is what each member is required to fill out in a thoughtful manner before they come, which is speaking to, here's where I am on the 3 legs of the stool: business, family, friends, personal. And if I had to present today, this is the one topic that's keeping me up at night, and here's why. Every one of them has to give that specific piece at the end in their 5-minute update. Here's how I'm feeling. Here's what I'm struggling with. And then we have 2 deep dive explorations where one of my members I have selected to go through that challenging topic in detail, giving all the nuance and the context for why it's such a thorny, complicated challenge, what they've thought about doing about it and how. And then it's opened up to the group to ask specific clarifying questions before they just share their experiences in similar situations, trying to give that perspective to help my member make better choices. It is crisp. It is structured. We take breaks at specific times, and we really maximize the value of that 3-hour window.
Hey everyone, we'll be right back to the episode, but one quick note, success doesn't happen in a vacuum. So if you'd like to learn more, you want to go deeper and interact with like-minded people, I'd love to have you join the free Path to Freedom Facebook group. You can join by going to pathtofreedom.com/group and become a part of the Path to Freedom community. All right, back to the episode. Yeah, I think the structure is key, right? Because if it's just, hey, let's show up and hope some good things happen, it'll fizzle out so fast. And I'm a part of Franchise, which and most of the listeners know. And so, Franchise is probably made up today of 60 to 65 consultants. We're all independent consultants. So, we're not franchisees. We didn't pay to become part of Franchise. We do not work for Franchise, but we share in resources, and we all contribute. And so just kind of organically, these different peer groups have popped up within Franchise, and for a while I was part of two of them. Right now I'm currently part of just one of them, and everything you just talked about is true in that group that I'm a part of still, right? And the group that I was a part of and am no longer, there was not great structure. The members, didn't always make it a priority, right? Like, if there were 6 of us in that group, very, very rarely were all 6 members there for a meeting, you know and even when structure was kind of attempted to be brought into it, just because it wasn't done from the beginning and the buy-in
Yep.
wasn't there, and not everyone was on the same page. It got to a point. I don't think that group meets at all any longer because it just wasn't valuable enough, right? We're all busy, we all have things going on. So having that structure is important. Several things I want to ask you on this. So one, talk to me about accountability. Like, how have you guys incorporated? So you talked a little bit about the update that everyone has to have, and I'm sure some of the listeners are familiar with EOS and Traction. I had Justin Mink on probably 6 months ago, who's an EOS implementer and works with a lot of different franchisors and franchisees. There's a very structured process to EOS, and one of the things is establishing rocks and then identifying, all right, what are the key tasks that need to be accomplished in the short term to work towards these bigger goals. Do you guys have any of that built into the structure of this? And if so, what does the accountability piece look like in terms of, all right, this is what you said you were going to do from the end of our last meeting to now. Have you done it? And if not, what type of, I don't know if consequences is the right word, but you know, what type of hazing, what type of, like, what happens, right? If I show up and I haven't done my shit from that I said I was going to do, what happens to me?
Good question. EOS is built into the fabric of ZorForum. Accountability is, a core value of ours. We run at the corporate level off L10 meetings. We have our rocks and our key initiatives, and that's helped us with accountability and role clarification at the corporate level, which has helped us get to this point where we are very much prepared for the explosive growth that we expect to see in the months to come. But in the groups themselves, the good thing is when you're surrounding yourself as a moderator with high achieving, typically type A, leaders of organizations, you don't need to do a whole lot to reprimand them because they would feel very embarrassed to show up to a group like this when they haven't done their shit and everyone else has. Just the fact that they have a connection with the other people in this group and they're asked to complete an assignment, they do it. So the accountability or the responsibility is pretty simple. It's my job as the moderator to prompt and remind them, about a week and a half before a meeting that their updates are due. Give them a deadline for it, which my next meeting is next Wednesday. I sent that out on Monday. They all owe me their updates by today, and they'll get it done. The other way that I have helped to inspire connectivity with my members that we're going to roll out to the other groups as well is to give each of them a one-on-one accountability partner. So, my members connect on different topics anyway, but each of them is required to have a check-in with one specific other member in between meetings to
And
talk
does that
more about.
rotate?
Yes, it,
So
it,
it's
it
not
does.
always the same one-on-one.
Each
Yeah.
quarter it rotates. So
Yeah.
that by itself has worked. I mean, they know when the meeting's coming. It's the second Wednesday of every month from 9:30 to 12:30. My job is just to, prompt and encourage them and, throw a quick text out there. You need to get this to me by Friday because they are busy. But I guess that's also part of the fact where it's so important that the moderator has, such good relations and, experience and respect built and trust built with the members that you can, make those professionally annoying requests and they get done.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And the accountability to me is such a big part of the value of something like this. You know, I talk to this with my candidates that I'm coaching through the franchise buying process all the time. I mean, to me,
Yep.
one of the benefits that never really gets talked about of, buying into a franchise or anything where you're investing money, right? And then looking to get something out of it is you have skin in the game now, right? So it's a hell of a lot harder to not do what you're supposed to do.
Yep.
Like I was telling you before we started recording, and I've talked about it on the podcast here. Like at the beginning of last year, I wrote a pretty big check to join this fitness program, right?
Yep.
Where, my coach is online. My coach lives in the UK. Never met him face to face. There's personalized one-on-one nutrition and fitness coaching. But none of it's like that revolutionary in terms of like I could have probably cobbled all of this together, granted with a lot of trial and error, without having a coach and without, writing this big check for it. But, you know, the accountability piece, right? Like, they've
Yeah.
got an app and every day I have, my certain things and, my fitness pal syncs to the app so my trainer can see, am I logging my food? If so, like, am I hitting my macro targets and whatnot? And it's like, and there's been days where I've literally forced myself to do a workout or forced myself not to eat some crap just because I didn't want to let my trainer down. I
Yep.
didn't want to have to explain to him, why it didn't happen or why it did happen. And so, um, and then like finding just little ways to, kind of make it fun or even competitive. Like, the group I'm a
Absolutely.
part of with Franchoice, we probably started this a year and a half ago. And it's not a whole lot of money, but we meet once a month for 2 hours. And at the end of that meeting, we each give ourselves a goal for the number of consultations that we want to have in the upcoming month. And we can all set our own goal, right? So the goal does not have to be the same for everyone across the board. Um,
Yep.
but then if you don't hit your goal that you set for yourself, you pay $100 into a purse that accumulates over the course of the entire year.
Yeah.
And look, $100. I mean, even if you paid in every single month, $1,200 over the course of a year, it's not a huge amount of money by any means, but it stings, right? And like our thing is, you have to put cash in the mail and send it to one of the guys in the group, and he holds the cash. Like just the now I got to go to the ATM and I got to make sure I have an envelope and a stamp and walk it down to the mailbox. Like you don't want to do it, right? To the point where like you will scrap and do what you need to do to make sure you hit that goal every month. So that's made it fun, and I think it's actually inspired us all a lot more than we thought it would, because the dollar amounts, like I said, are not that meaningful, but there was some sort of a mindset component with that's really helped us. It's been cool.
Accountability gets a lot easier when, number one, you are both financially and emotionally invested in something. And then you've developed such relationships and commitments with the people you're surrounding yourself by on whatever that initiative is, that you literally feel bad if you're not adding the same value to them that they are to you. I mean, my group has advanced to such a point, and it makes me so proud that we're digging into the stuff that is really holding my members back from being their best self on a personal level and a professional level. I mean,
Yeah, man, I
um,
love that.
people
That's
have
that's
talked
cool.
about people have talked about how they've saved their marriage, through talking about stuff within our group. Dealing with really significant personal health concerns that they've used our group to gain a better perspective about things they can't control, and tapping into fitness things like you're discussing that you're part of, that have helped them get a better perspective and have helped them get on a better path to their path to freedom of
Yeah.
personal health, through this group, talking about things as heavy as, losing a spouse, feeling guilty about creating a new life with somebody new, and helping to, lean on the group to feel better about the fact, like, look, you did all you could do, and now you get to enjoy a next chapter with someone else who's really wonderful as well. So, I mean, that's the degree to which we have been able to build a level of trust and vulnerability and commitment to each other, that accountability really isn't a concern, because my group members would all tell you this is the best 3 hours they spend every month.
Hey everyone, we'll get right back to the episode, but I wanted to quickly share a free resource with you. If you're curious about franchise ownership and want to learn more about how countless people, including myself, have leveraged franchising as a way to create more freedom for themselves and to take control of their livelihood, I've put together an ebook. It's called Franchise Wealth Creation, and it's the perfect starting point for anyone that's just curious to learn more about this whole franchise thing and how I've helped hundreds of other people navigate all the steps involved in understanding and researching franchising. So click the link in the show notes, fill out a short form. I'll send you the ebook. I think it's a great starting point if you're curious at all about learning more about franchising. All right, let's get back to the episode. Yeah. And I think when you can get to the point where there's enough trust and rapport to expand, the topics you're talking about and digging into, to just, how can each of us continue working towards becoming our best self and expand beyond just the business side of it. To me, that's where it gets really interesting and really powerful. And, you and I were talking before we started recording, like, the older I get, the more I, kind of realize how connected everything is, right? Like doing
Oh yeah.
well in business and making good money is great, right? But if you want to look at it through the lens of freedom, right? And freedom can, mean different things to different people, but I think, there's some underlying components of freedom that are the same for pretty much everyone. Just money and success in business isn't going to get you there, right? Because you may not have the time that you want. Even if you have the money and the time, maybe you don't have the relationships that you want. Maybe you don't have, your health or your fitness. Maybe you don't have the right mindset. Maybe you're anxious and, just constantly worried about something. So it all has to come together, and you need to kind of continually make progress in all of these different buckets of your life to really get to that point where you're living a fulfilled life, and you're truly happy. And so, a group where you guys are all kind of working on that together, and it's not just, hey, we're here to talk about business and this is all we talk about, and oh no, I don't want to hear about your personal stuff or your health stuff. Like, that's crossing some lines. um that's valuable, and it makes sense to me that you've had people that are a part of this group for 2 years and will continue to be a part of that group.
Yeah, I mean, it is my experience that, work-life balance is as fleeting and unachievable as everlasting happiness, so to speak. Where,
Yeah.
there, as I mentioned, there are three legs of the stool. You have your business, things that you're focused on. You have your family and your friends, the people who mean a lot to you, and you have your personal health, both mental and physical. At all times, at least one of those things is not getting the time and attention that it deserves. You can't fix that, but it is super helpful to be aware of where you are sort of short shrifted at the moment, figure out why that's the case, give yourself a little bit of a break of why it is, and then be more intentional about how you put more energy into the area that's underserved. If you have that sort of monthly reality check of here's where I'm at, here's what I'm happy about, here's what I'm struggling with, here's how I emphasize the positive and do what I can to do something about what I'm not doing enough about, that's huge by itself.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. This is cool, and I know we're kind of coming up on our time here. So fun for me to learn more about this. And look, if I'm a franchisee or if I'm considering getting into a franchise, and I find out that the founder or CEO of the brand is part of a group like this, I love that. Right? That's a big plus in my eyes. And one of the things we didn't really talk about was you mentioned Dave Pasgan, and ZorForum, I guess, was kind of built off of his experience with a group that he kind of organically formed with 6 or 7 other founders of franchise companies. They were all, when they met, they were all in very similar stages of where the business was. And that's probably what, 12, 15 years ago at this point.
Oh yeah.
At least 12 years ago at this point. Every single one of those guys has sold or exited the businesses that they were building when they met, yet that group is still together. And a lot of them have become really, really good friends and gone on to do other business deals together and introduce people that have been instrumental in helping them. So that's a really cool kind of template to be able to look at and say, okay, we can help construct this same type of group and environment for other people.
That's
So it's pretty cool, man. I know we're kind of running out of time. If a franchisor is listening to this, wants to learn more about ZorForum, where could they go to check that out? And where would you want to point anyone else that's listening to this, maybe curious about 919 marketing or anything else that you have going on?
awesome, man. Thank you. Anyone who's interested in ZorForum at any level, becoming a member as a franchisor, becoming a franchisee or a moderator, someone who's been in the franchising space for a long time, zorforum.com. You can reach me, Graham at zorforum.com, or G Chapman at 919marketing.com. And to wrap with what Wes was talking about, when Dave told me about this, I was immediately inspired by it because the proof is in the pudding. Those companies that Wes is talking about, Shelf Genie, 101 Mobility, College Hunks Hauling Junk, Tutor Doctor, Speed Pro, Soccer Shots, these are behemoths in the franchising space, but they were not when these guys came together to join forces and try to help each other in this mastermind format. So we are thrilled to help build these groups. They're going to help more of these emerging and established models get to that point that those guys got to. So Wes, thank you for allowing me to join the show today.
Yeah, man. Always good to have you. We need to do it more often, and keep up the good work with everything that you're doing, and especially ZorForum. And we should note you've become a dad since the last time that you were on the podcast. So if you think work-life balance is fleeting now, just wait till you have 1 or 2 more of those rugrats running around.
Yeah, man. One is enough to disrupt that. I don't know how you do it with 3.
Yeah, it's all kind of a blur, man, but we make it work somehow. So, well, hey, brother, I appreciate you, and keep up the good work. Thanks for everything that you do.
Appreciate you, homie. Thanks.